here? Okay, you are good to go for your meeting.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting, the June Planning and Economic Development meeting to order. And I'd like to first shout out to, I want to welcome everybody for being here, but I want to welcome Fred Johnson back. It's been a rough road for him, but it's really awesome to see you, sir, so I'm so glad you're here.
Well,
It's great.
somebody
Mr.
spent $1 million.
Mr. Chairman, a point of personal privilege. It's long been my thought there cannot be too many Freds on the Chautauqua County Legislature, so it is good to have you back,
The
Fred.
etymology of Frederick is peaceful rule.
That's it.
Okay, the first item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes. Did all the committee members get a chance to review the minutes? And is there any questions on the minutes? I guess all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. The next item on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Is there anybody here who wants to speak of the privilege of the floor? Now's your time. Seeing none, we'll carry on the agenda. Resolution number 1 is to amend the 2024 capital budget for the Mason Industrial Park shovel-ready improvements and authorize entry and agreement with the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency.
Yes, I'm going to give a little background on this.
Can you please introduce yourself, sir?
Mark Geis, Deputy County Executive for Economic Development and CEO of the IDA.
Thank you.
Nate Aldrich, Economic Development Coordinator.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can speak to this before they explain it, I would like to point out that this resolution is listing at the request of the county executive and myself. I would like to suggest that since legislator Larson was instrumental in getting us to this point with this endeavor, that I would like to have his name also added to that line.
Is it so noted?
Hopefully there'll be a second to that, other than by me. You got a second, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Johnson, okay, great. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried as well.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman.
Mark and Nate, thank you.
Yeah, so as you know, we've made preparing shovel-ready sites a key objective of the IDA. And we all know about the Ripley site, and we're going to talk about that later. But, you know, we have 66 acres in Mason Industrial Park that about half of it, 33 acres, is developable. And it was purchased back in 2015 or 16. There was county funding to acquire it from Bush. I've got a map. I handed out. You can see where it is. You can see where Mason Drive is to the north. The site is in the center with the black dotted line around it. And you can see Parkway Drive kind of intersects through it, and Mason Drive is to the north. And you can see where Bush is the big building just to the north, sort of on the left. Larson Metals to the right, north of it. You got Stannard Trucking is southeast of the site, and Serta Mattress is just to the south. But you can sort of see where it's at. We put in a little employee park around the ponds just north of Stannard. And we did do, back in that time, some of the things to get it shovel ready. You know, we did a partial seeker, did a phase 1 environmental assessment, did a partial survey of the site, archaeological survey was performed for 33 acres of the total acreage. But there was a number, and some other things, but there was a number of things that weren't done. And so, bottom line, Mason Industrial Park is, as it sits, not shovel-ready. You know, we've been talking, we had a conversation with Mr. Chignon and Mr. Larson and the chair of our board, et cetera. We talked about this being an important project. And we agreed, the IDA, to allocate half of the funding, if the county would match the other half, to, and if you look at the second sheet, that's a cost estimate, you can see the list of things that need to be done. Seeker, boundary topographic and feature survey for phase 1A and B, archaeological survey, you can read. Those things need to be done. Now, the thing that we aren't gonna do now is the natural gas main extension. And there's really a reason for that. Number one, we don't know if whoever comes along is gonna need gas, what they're gonna need, so it would dictate the size of the line. And we feel that we could do that fairly quickly, and there's also funding available, if, you know, for the right type of, company that would come along. So anyway, we decided that we would do all of the other items other than the natural gas main extension. They amount to about 150, and then with a contingency, 18 to 20% contingency, it brings it to 180. Half of that is 90. So our board, again, we approved it in May for the 90 for our half, and we're asking the legislature to approve the other half, and it would come from unassigned fund balance, and it would amend the 2024 capital budget for this project.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the, basically, nothing had been done with this 60-some acres since 2017, according to the CPL March 24 report. So most of you have not been on this legislature to have had anything to do with the South County Industrial Park. Let me share a little history with you. In the County Industrial Parks Task Force in 1998-99 went to this legislature with a proposal for, I think, $13.5 million to do work in this park, the county park on Hunt Road, that is home of Southern Tier Brew, and the Stoneman Industrial Park, it's county, and also in the North County, the Chadwick Bay Industrial Park. So $13.5 million. Part of that was to make shovel-ready the land that, on pure speculation, on land that shortly thereafter Serta Mattress came to the county looking to establish its first manufacturing facility in New York State. And because this parcel was shovel-ready, literally, basically all they had to do was go to the town of Ellicott zoning officer and get a building permit. So that's the kind of thing that can happen in this South County Industrial Park. Why? For better or worse, from the point of view of those of us that live within the confines of the city of Jamestown, which nobody wants the city to expand at all, this whole park is served by Jamestown Water, Jamestown Sewer, and Jamestown Electric. The taxes go to the town of Ellicott, of course, or pilots. But the truth is that, unlike many other 60-acre parcels you could find throughout the county, this one is pretty unique in having all three municipal services available, and marked basically because of where Serta is, and Bush and Larson Metal, no relation to me. The city sewer, water, and electric are in fairly close proximity to the 60 acres. Agreed?
Yep.
Yeah. So at 71, I only ran to get back on this body to focus on economic development. to the chagrin of some of my colleagues that want me to be very engaged in other things, other topics that are important. But for me, what's important is economic development and job creation. So I give Mark credit when I wrote to you on January 2, first day in office. You commissioned this CPL study, and I am, for what it's worth, I'm pleasantly surprised that for under $200,000, our experts say that all these things that New York State would require to be shovel-ready for any industry to come in, get a building permit. I'm pleasantly surprised at the modest cost. Now, we don't want to deceive anybody. This does not include eventually building a road to wherever the proper site will wind up being after the experts delineate, that's the word they use, they delineate where the wetlands are and so forth, and those are off limits. But once we know what we've got, there'll be some more expense, but it's very modest to get this 30-some acres usable. I will say that my experience, for example, with Serta Mattress, it's a much smaller parcel, as you can almost see, much smaller. And at one time, it was my understanding that with their own truck drivers, which are employees of Serta, they use some contract employees, but some are their own, that roughly 200 employees, at one time anyway, were based at Serta right there. And some of you may have heard of Electrovaya, which is coming in to take over a fairly modern facility that, well, I say fairly modern, as a legislator in the 80s, I was one to vote. I think this legislature voted $250,000 for site prep for what was then going to be Accurite, became a German company. So Accurite came in, they probably had 100 to 200 people. Then it became MD Electronics, also owned by the German company, which I won't spell, but it's something like Heidenhain. Yep. Our own Bruce Dudgeon of Bemis Point area, a local guy, was running that, and he had 200 employees at one time in that 30-some acres, which Electrovaya is going to have. I think Electrovaya has indicated maybe 150 mark, something like that. This is all leading to, in a meeting that a bunch of us had to come up with this resolution. The county IDA expert, when I asked him what's a good number of manufacturing jobs in this roughly 33 usable acres, he surprised me and he said 50. So I guess if it's 50 someday, we'll be grateful that it's 50 full-time, good-paying jobs with benefits. But I had the opportunity to ask this expert, well, what if it was warehouse distribution? And the expert said, well, then it'd be about half. That'd be about 25 jobs in 30-some acres. So I learned a lot. I thank Mark and the IDA and the county planning and economic development folks that were part of that big meeting. And obviously I urge this committee to support this modest, $90,000 is pretty small in terms of most of the things county government deals with anymore. It hardly buys a well, it wouldn't buy a dump truck, I'm sure, not even close. Tiny one for your business, but not for county highway, right? Anyway, I want to thank Mark for commissioning this study, and I want to thank by the way, back in 1999, the legislature voted on the $13 million package. There were 25 legislators then. I think it was 13 to 12 Democratic, I think. And the case that we made, the Industrial Parks Task Force, that $13.5 million resolution passed 22 to 2 with one absent. So I'm looking forward to almost unanimous support, maybe unanimous, that this is land we already own. It's zoned industrial. It has all the municipal utilities you could ever dream of. And if the chairman, Chagnon, doesn't mind my saying so, he thinks that this will be spoken for in reasonably short order once we get it technically, legally, practically shovel-ready. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I just want to add that I think this is a worthwhile investment to get this going. So,
Two other things real quick.
Sure
One
thing.
is that you might be wondering, how long will it take to do that? A few months, 3 to 4 months to get this done. And how big of a building could it support? Maybe maximum 300,000 square feet. So I wanted to throw
So
that
it's
out
got a
there
lot of-
too. So,
it's got a lot of potential for space and growth, so.
Mr. Chairman, one other point. First of all, I'm glad Mark brought that up because I asked the expert, well, if we approve this money at the June legislature meeting, how long is it going to take to do all this? And I had no idea what he was going to say, but as Mark said, he's comfortable 3 or 4 months. So like October, July, August, like October, this legislature should know what he's concluded about all this.
obviously, we gotta get the contract in place, and sometimes that can take a while.
Well, the lawyers will rush it
Yeah.
right through.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta-
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, the public record at the time when Vince Horrigan, as county executive, arranged to buy this land from Bush Industries, it was public. Then the state of New York got credit for putting in $200,000 toward the purchase. So for the record, the state and the county combined, as they often do, on economic development. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other things to add or any questions?
Sure, let me, just
Sure thing.
new kid again back. in the
Absolutely, love to hear.
block. So the last number I remember when Mr. Barella was county executive was, he came up with a figure which rang true with a lot of our business people, which was there were some 500, as you say, good paying jobs, welders, machinists, we're not talking restaurant waitresses, going begging in this county. The jobs are there and the people aren't. You talk to the real estate people, say if we could hire, if we could drop 250 welders, electricians, whatever, into the mix, we don't have housing for them. So, I mean, it's traditionally, I have kind of, and Senator Schumer was down at Barcelona Harbor before I went into the hospital, talking about jobs. And I kind of go, time out. The reality has changed in terms of what the limiting factor is. We've got more jobs than we've got people, and we're not alone in this, and this is a national trend. This may be a perfectly good project, but I think we need to kind of take into account housing, employee base. Ages ago, one of my jobs was to approve all major CapExes for Frito-Lay and then for Total Pepsi. So when we were locating a potato chip plant, first of all, we looked at the economics of the area. Now, granted, we had a relatively short throw in terms of distribution. Was that area, in terms of consumers, shrinking, growing, static? But the very next thing we looked at, which is obviously our biggest cost base, was what's the nature of the labor pool? What's the cost? What's the availability? What's the trainability? We were happy to train people, and people out migrating that we can stop. What are the amenities? And there were a couple of sites, Fall River, Massachusetts, that was perfect for serving Boston. The real estate was cheap. It was, as we say now, shovel ready. The workforce just wasn't there. The workforce that was there had a bad attitude, very union, very combative. We just said no, not doing that. And the immediate economic area other than Boston itself was not particularly growing. So I heard one statistic the other day. The United States is losing between 500 and 1,000 workers, truck drivers, welders, electricians, a day through retirement, more than we're bringing in to the pool. The baby boomers are going out. The echo boomers are all fully employed. And what do we call this generation? Generation Z? And they're a small cohort. And for whatever reason, they seem to be, I mean, it's turning, but they seem to be less interested in that kind of work. There was a beautiful op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday by a guy who decided to be a heating and air conditioning technician and not go to college. And how he was happy with that decision.
Sure.
So it's just a suggestion that the world is different than 1998, when, yeah, we needed jobs.
Mm.
This is nationally and locally is on the other foot.
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
100%.
Thanks for your insight, Fred. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. Van Allen?
No, sir.
Fred, or Dan, anything? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, resolution's carried. Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Second resolution tonight is to authorize an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Mina. If you could please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave McCord. I work within the Department of Planning and Economic Development. And I am the Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator.
Absolutely.
And I'm also well on my way to being deaf, so please talk loudly.
I'm gonna
Talking to me.
scream at you tonight, Dave.
What?
So,
What? Thank you so much.
Okay.
As you may know, county executive wanted to do some things for our lakes, and that was by providing some funding for lake maintenance projects. We put $500 into the watershed
go.
budget to do that, or $500,000 in the watershed budget to do that. Our first agreement was with the Chautauqua Lake Association to extend the early season maintenance. That means getting equipment and people out there early, doing shoreline cleanup and those sorts of things. It's been very impactful. Town of Mina, working with the Finley Lake Watershed Foundation, received a grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to help alleviate, to do some studies to help alleviate the nutrients in the lake that cause so many weeds and harmful algal blooms. They need a little more science, and this resolution is to allow us to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Mina to fund that from the Lake Fund. Interestingly, our agreement with the CLA flew through with no problem. However, the county charter requires a permission from the legislature for the county executive to enter such agreement. Odd that you would need to do that with a municipality as opposed to a not-for-profit, but that's how the charter reads, and that's the law department's interpretation. So that's what this resolution is about. I will say that I would like very much to do something like we did with the Lake Erie Management Commission last year, where we were doing entering the contracts for monies that were already budgeted, and rather come back and do an intermunicipal agreement for each of those, we could be much more responsive.
Mhm.
So we developed a resolution that addressed a certain class of actions,
Okay.
put a dollar limit on the top, and, allowed us to get into those agreements with municipalities. So we'll probably do that next month.
Okay.
Great.
Oh, wonderful. Do we have any questions, committee?
Yeah,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair.
John.
Dave, you have some statistics on Finley Lake, the economic impact, just 30,000-foot view on what Finley Lake is, the
Well,
impact?
Finley's.
I know it's big, just up there over the weekend.
It's not as big, nearly as big as Chautauqua, but it's a shallow man-made lake. I think the average depth is about 8 feet. It was originally built on a wetland, and there was just an awful lot of organic material. Those organic materials, through generations, seasons of plant growth, continue to generate internal loading, phosphorus, and other nutrients, which cause the harmful algal blooms and excessive weed growth. So they did a nutrient study to help identify the sources around the lake. One of the big ones, of course, there in Findlay is the lack of a municipal wastewater collection system. They have tackled that, proved after decades of trying, and they're gonna go forward with that as soon as they can do all the things you need to do to get into those big agreements. I think it's about a $16-17 million project. Big for Mina, of course. So they need now to look at beyond sources of the nutrients, they wanting to know what the sediment oxygen demand is, much like biological oxygen demand in a wastewater treatment plant. You gotta know the strength of what you're dealing with. Also, they want to do some bathymetry, which is nothing more than a bottom survey, so you get an accurate volume of the water that you're dealing with.
Mark, you.
No, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I know it's pretty significant, but off the top of my head,
Yeah, you know, I was
I
just
don't-
looking at some of the property tax, you know, the property taxes generated around Finn Lake, but that's for another time, but, thank you.
yeah, we'll look it up.
Do we have any more questions or comments? Mr. Shagnon?
Dave, do you happen to know who is going to do the work?
Say that again?
Do you happen to know who is going to do the work?
No, I don't. I suspect it'll be Princeton Hydro, however, because they've been their prime contractor through this effort.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we all set? All those in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, David. Okay, resolution number 3 is to amend budgets and authorize use of Chautauqua County 2% and 3% occupancy tax reserve funds for Lawson Boating Heritage Center structural repairs. Do we have anyone to speak on that? We do. We got a whole bunch of
Need to
them.
get on the chair.
I'll stand.
They're not coming down, so I think you're all right.
Frank, you better
You all sit here?
please do.
So if you folks can introduce yourselves to the committee and to
Sure.
the audience, appreciate it.
I'm Max Pickard. I am Secretary of the Board of Trustees for the Lawson Boating Heritage Center on Chautauqua Lake, located in Bemis Point.
Okay?
I'm Craig Butler, and I'm a past president on the Board of Trustees.
So, is anybody here not been to the Lawson Center?
I have not.
I think everybody has. So,
We'll give you a ride when we leave.
Okay, great. Thanks.
They've got some structural problems. It's actually built in the lake, subject to ice and wave damage for 75 years.
Yeah, the Lawson family bought the property in 1918. And so it's been it was an operating marina for all those years until 2010, when the Lawson Boating Heritage Center was created as a nonprofit. It's basically a boat museum specializing in displaying and preserving the history of wood boats that plied the lake, Chautauqua, Chris crafts that were manufactured or assembled in Faulkner. We have Centuries, we have, well, a variety of different boats in there. The foundation that's lakeside, I have handouts, I don't know if anybody wants.
Yeah, I'd like to see those, yeah, please.
It'll show the scouring that has taken place of the foundation on the lakeside,
Undermining.
done by the ice over the years, and wave action during this time when the ice is off the lake. We had a engineering study undertaken by Eco Strategies in Faulkner. And they basically have said that we need to stabilize the foundation and then armor it with a riprap rock wall to protect it from any further damage. There are 3 piers that basically hold up the building along the lake. 2 of the piers on the corners have not settled, but the one in the middle has, and we went through major renovations of the property 2010 through 2012. May of 2012 is when we opened the museum. So it needs to be addressed. It's a structural issue. It's getting worse every year. It's not getting better. We have been put forward for a SAM grant of $75,000 from the state, thanks to Assemblyman Andrew Goodell. We are ready to sign the grant agreement with the state pending DEC approval, and it is in Buffalo being reviewed right now, our application for this. We have set aside, well, we've either invested or set aside up to almost $12,000 of our own money. We have $8,000, over $8,000, almost $9,000 that's been earmarked for this project by the Community Foundation, Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. And we have a funding gap of about $46,000. And that's where we're at. And that's why we're here, and why we approached the county for some help, so that we can make sure that we get the money from the state and put it to good use to preserve this gem on the lake.
So this resolution is kind of unique because on its face, it's a great 3% project.
Okay.
But the changes in the 2% legislation beginning this year creates more of a focus on recreation and tourism projects.
Okay.
So we decided to split it, go 50-50, one for the 2% and the 3%.
So
Sounds like a plan.
the state grant, is it matching funds or like, or do you have a matching fund requirement for the state grant?
No. We do have to have the money to complete the project, or we're not gonna get the state grant. The state grant is more directly directed for the riprap rock wall, which will armor the foundation. We didn't know that we had such problems with the foundation until the engineering study was done, but we'd gotten the application submitted prior to the completion of the engineering study, so it grew beyond what we had anticipated. We had an $80,600 quote for the riprap rock wall, then we got another $42,000, whatever it was, quote for the foundations after the engineering study was done.
Matt,
What's
can you tell
the-
us about how many people a year visit the Lawson
Yeah,
Center?
last year, we had 5,000 people come through the facility. We are a seasonal operation. We are only open June, July, August, and September. We do have certain events, private events that are hosted there at other times of the year, but our busy time of the year is right now, starting Memorial Day weekend until we get through Labor Day, and well into September.
What's the useful life of the repair?
What's that?
What's the useful life of the repair? Like, how long do they expect that will
Well,
hold?
once it's complete, it'll be there a lot longer than it's been already there.
That's good.
There are businesses in this facility going all the way back into the 1890s, when there were like boat liveries where you could rent a canoe or a double-end rowboat or something. And over the years, it's endured. When we took over the property in September of 2010, Dave Lawson Jr. donated it to us. I remember, I'm a local boy, I grew up in Lakewood, but I remember thinking, gee, I don't think that building's been painted in my lifetime. So it had really deteriorated, and the summer cottage for the Lawson family was attached to it, and that was torn down. And so we borrowed $600,000 to structurally save the building, reconfigured it into a museum. In 2011, it took us a year, and then we opened to the public in May of 2012. This is our 13th season. We're about 5,000 people. We have many events. Last year was 77, and we're probably getting closer to 100 this year. The majority of the events in the building is space used for free. We are all volunteer. In 13 years, we've never had $1 of payroll. We borrowed $600,000. As of December 31st of last year, we were totally debt-free of our mortgage debt.
Fantastic.
And I'll give examples. As I said, the majority of the events we donate if they don't interfere with a revenue-producing event. Most of those are on weekends, wedding receptions and reunions and high school proms and memorial services and different things. The Watershed Alliance, 6 of their 12 board meetings are open to the public. Every one of those for the past, we got a few years on this now, are at the Lawson Center. We donate it for free. This year, there will be at least 2 Lake Management Committee meetings. Those will be also free. Stop Lake Partnership, Bemis Point Stowe Ferry, Historical Society of Bemis Point, civic organizations. We've had the Lions Club, we've had the Rotary, we've had Kiwanis. That was a field trip, I think, down in, because you were there.
I was there.
So we kind of count that. We went on the road because we wanted to,
Yep.
be in front of you. Foundations have had board meetings, retreats, strategic planning sessions, and so forth. We also have a great educational program for both adults and for children. We have 4th grade programs. It seems to be a good age where they really learn something. And these are from schools from all over the county. And we divide it between our facility and the Bemis Point Stowe Ferry. We're kind of sister organizations. And so they get to see a field trip that gets them to very significant historical properties or facilities, or ferry, that, really get some history. So we feel that we really benefit the region. We grow each year, and I'm very proud of what we've done and the feedback we get from people when they talk. Are you familiar?
No,
with
I've not
Lawson
been
Center?
there. This is
But
new to
it's-
me, and I'm excited about wanting to
But
go
it's-
there
yeah,
and check
it's
it
a-
out.
Please come.
It's great.
It's
Please come.
I will, I'll definitely.
I'd also like to make a point that the vast majority of the people that attend our events are out-of-state people. So they're bringing money into the area. Roughly half of our membership of 300 are out-of-state residents that have summer homes around the lake or are visitors to our communities. Bemis being a resort community,
Sure.
we get, we're a population of here, about 500 year-round. So 5,000 is a significant number of people to come through our doors. We are one of the few facilities in that community that is family-friendly. The library, the Stowe Ferry, and our facility, Bemis Point Inn, I guess you could call it family-friendly, but once you get in a little further afield of that, it's more nightlife, but it's a very nice community. It's my hometown. It's where I grew up. And
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So, this is a no-brainer, but one question I have for you.
sure.
What is the initial investment when this property was purchased in the rehabilitation of the building? We're protecting a significant amount of investment that you put into this building. What is that, just kind of rough?
Well, the building was donated, and it was a wreck and a mess. I like that term.
I remember that.
And we borrowed $600,000. None of that was donated. It was a kind of a 2-part mortgage arrangement we had from a private lender and then from a bank. And we undertook a campaign to pay it off. It was a 36-month goal, and we paid it off in 24 months.
I
So
think
$600,000
Yeah.
was borrowed, 600,000
that's,
was
uh,
repaid. So that is the financial investment. It did significantly improve, stabilize, and assure that the building is, a modern-day equipped building for decades and decades. However, the structural flaw that is the underpinning, if that fails, then it won't be a small failure. It's going to be, considerable, and it would impact our ability to go into the future.
But I
Rest
think
of
what
these-
we're
I'm sorry.
missing here, John, is that there was value to, the 600,000 is certainly their investment, but the property value prior to that 600 needs to be added into that calculation as well.
Oh, yes.
So when you ask how much we're actually protecting, it's well above that 600.
Yeah, I mean, what these folks have completed there is very worthy, an outstanding accomplishment.
it, actually.
From the volunteers and time and own private donations that so many people made, so it's an amazing project.
Do we have anything else to add as a committee? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
There you go.
I can't
Thank
wait
you
to
for your
go there.
time.
Can't wait to get there. Thank you, really.
I am, next Tuesday.
Nice. Okay, resolution number 4 on the docket is authorizing the
Bible says, "Ask,
SEQRA
and it
review
shall
of
be
the
given unto
2% watershed occupancy tax grant program projects for 2025.
I'm not done yet, I'm still here.
Dave McCoy is gonna speak on that.
You know, we do something like this every year for the occupancy tax. In years past, we only had one program on the watershed side. We had around 250,000 in 2023 to do like 10 projects. And the changes in the occupancy tax, in response to those changes, we've created 2 parallel programs. One for the traditional watershed side and one for in-lake, which includes maintenance and other projects, almost like the Lawson Center that we're seeing here. So this year, so we had like 250 and we were able to do 10 projects. Looking forward to 2025, we don't know what our budget's gonna be, but I'm hoping we're gonna be able to increase this slightly. Be able to surely afford 3 projects on each side of the program. I like to do 4. So I'm asking to be able to do the environmental review for the top 4 scoring projects on each side of the program.
Top 4.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
On these number of resolutions tonight, as a legislator, I just don't know what is the process that prioritizes or ranks these various projects. Who's doing the ranking?
There are 2 separate committees. We have our traditional watershed committee, formerly known as the Waterways Panel. Some of those folks have been with the program for more than 10 years. Pretty good bunch of reviewers. On the in-lake side, we formed a brand-new panel. We wanted to make sure we were encompassing folks who really had their pulse on the local economy and the impacts on recreation and tourism. We have a restaurateur from Findlay Lake. We have a marina owner from Chautauqua Lake. We have a fishing charter captain from Lake Erie. And we have a tourism specialist that happens to work for the county. I think we all know him. So we have a good group on both sides. So we get together and we score and rank these, and it takes 4 or 5 meetings to thoroughly vet them, and at the end of the day, we come up with a ranked list, which you have before you. We can't fund them all as much as we like to, but we try to do the top.
So you're looking to do 4 of these projects?
That's what we'd like. But,
On the
you know,
in-lake
our
side as well?
2025 budget will determine what we can and can't do.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, this is all county money in this legislature with the 2% water money. This legislature can do anything with that 2% that it wants to. And these committees you refer to, are these committees ever confirmed by a resolution of the county legislature year to year?
No.
Well, that's a concern to me as a county legislator. We raise this money. The committees don't raise this money. We pass the laws that establish raising the money. It's county money. This body can say, whoever these advisors are, we appreciate their effort, but we're going to go with items 3, 5, 7, and 11. And I would feel better about these resolutions coming to us with this ranking if the legislature at least had the quasi-formality of once a year voting a resolution confirming this is the committee. I am from Jamestown, and I was concerned a few months ago when I got an answer as to, was any money going into the effort to have boats and whatnot come down to the National Comedy Center? And the answer I got was the group had made a decision not to fund anything below the Warner Dam, and I pointed out the Comedy Center, National Comedy Center, is above the Warner Dam. The list, is there anybody from Jamestown on either of those committees, from the city of Jamestown? 1/4 of our population.
I don't know where they live. I mean, they're residents of the county, I can tell you that. I don't know their street addresses, have their emails.
So there's nobody from the National Comedy Center on the board.
No,
There's nobody from the Community Foundation on the board.
no.
So it sounds like whoever's doing these rankings, they might be very ignorant of where the Warner Dam is and where water development could be had within the city of Jamestown, including the boat landing where the Chautauqua Belle comes usually early in the season and after the Chautauqua season. So I appreciate the work of any volunteer group, but this volunteer group is not confirmed by this legislature. We don't even know who they are, and you don't even know where they live. And yet we're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the year, and we're rubber stamping, handing it out, county money. It's not state, it's not federal, this isn't a pass-through, on anonymous recommendations. So that's a concern of mine. Maybe nobody else, but that's okay. I like to know who's giving me advice, just like we like to know who a consultant's going to be. We value some consultants more than others, probably. Legal opinions, we value some lawyers' legal opinions more than others. It bothers me to hand out public money that we raise. It's our money. We could give all that money to any one thing on that list. That's our power. That's our right. And we're being asked to rubber stamp items 1 through 4 by an anonymous group. So I don't know what practical answer is, except I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, maybe we could request of our own people that for calendar 25, we have a simple resolution, resolve that the Inland Lakes Water Committee, Advisory Committee be so-and-so, 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 and where the heck do they live? And the other committee. That would be, I'd be fine with that. And chances are this legislature would approve any individuals you feel should be on these committees, but at least we know who they are. At least we gave our formal approval to them telling us where we should hand out our tax money. Thank you.
You know,
I think it's reasonable
I
request.
do appreciate your concern, and I understand where you're coming from. These are dedicated people, their heart's in the right place. And to put them out there, expose them, if you will, to public scrutiny, I think is kind of a difficult thing, because when we first did the Fast Start program for 2024, we wanted to get those projects out quickly, and some of the stakeholders who applied didn't win, and they were aggravated because they thought they should have won, and they wanted to know, who are these people? We want to get a hold of them and talk to them, and why? Well, obviously, they wanted to change their vote or have some sort of additional influence on the program. So I think being off to the side, a little out of the public eye, is not a bad thing for these people.
You know, if I may make a, excuse me, if I may make
Sure, go
a
ahead.
point, I mean, I look at Casadega Lake, I represent that, I have partial Bear Lake in my district, and, you know, they didn't make the cut. So I kind of agree with my colleague here that it would be an interesting opportunity for us going forward to identify, open up, scope Finley Lake, Cassadaga Lake, Bear Lake, so on and so forth for half of this, and see what interest we have, no different than the interest that we request or identify for, say, example, the county planning board, which I think representation on a county planning board, no different than
Parks Commission.
Parks Commission, so on and so forth. And Dave, I don't think this is a difficult request. I think it just,
Right.
it brings it to the forefront, and I think it gives it clarity, and no different than us when they sign up to do this, whether in any commission or not, they're open to scrutiny. So, thank you.
Thanks for input. I do believe Fred,
I mean,
please.
just looking at it from the legislature's perspective,
Mhm.
and there's an old saying that delegation is good, but abrogation is not. And this sounds to me like abrogation.
Right.
I mean, we should be able to gracefully delegate these funds, but be responsible stewards of what's going on.
Mhm.
And, you know, maybe once a year, the four worthies show up and explain to us why they're or I don't know how many there are, show up and explain to us why they're recommending what they're recommending. I mean, because just to have it be a black box is,
I've been told
Unheard of.
that
I agree with
years
you.
ago, early in the program, that these decisions were made by the legislature. And in order to depoliticize
Mhm.
these decisions, they wanted to go with an independent group.
That's a
And
valid
that's
argument as
okay.
well. Yeah.
but the
Valid.
independent group is still spending the county's money. And the county has a fiduciary duty to make sure that it's being spent as as the representatives of the
Right.
people of the county wish.
But the legislature approves the budget and approves the amount of project monies. They don't approve the individual projects, but they approve the overall occupancy tax budget.
Sure.
So do you want to get down to the level now where you approve every,
No, I
because there's a
wouldn't,
lot of different,
I wouldn't go that far.
different things that occur.
Does he actually have to come before us and tell us which projects he's going to do, or are we just already giving him the money and saying you can go do this much work?
We're giving them the money, and then
Yeah.
they have the ability to prioritize what
Yep.
those are gonna be. They rank them, as he explained. And then they go ahead, and I'm gonna rely on their expertise and their board to figure what's gonna be done first. Because I wouldn't have a clue, and I don't think, as a legislator, in general, we would know what the projects entail. So I think the money is approved, as Mark just said. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's a good idea to let them people do what they need to do.
Yeah, there's, on that spectrum of abrogation, delegation, over on the other side, there's this thing called micromanagement.
Mhm.
We don't want to go get.
We don't wanna
into-
micromanage. I
We don't
don't,
want to get
I don't think
into
you
that.
wanna-
I believe the 2022 reauthorization of the occupancy tax at the state level gave the county executive broad discretion with the funding of the program. Could delegate, or not delegate, but choose the level of agency allocations for Watershed Conservancy, Soil and Water, the Alliance, and also with these projects as well.
Mhm.
So we independently score and rank them, put them out here as to do seeker. And once that's done, they will be incorporated in the county executive's budget. So that's how it all spells out. I think it'd be a tough thing to go through.
Mr. Chairman, it's great to have Legislator Johnson back.
Yes, it is.
The non sequitur in some of the argument tonight is we should just pass a budget estimated 250,000 for whatever pot we're talking about and let it go wherever it goes. The non sequitur is we're being asked tonight to vote resolutions as a county legislature to authorize State Environmental Quality Review Act on ranked projects that were ranked by an anonymous group. And that doesn't give me great comfort that I'm doing my fiduciary duty over this money. And so I'm not, you've heard what my request is. I'll vote for this tonight reluctantly. I don't know about the rest of you, but for come budget time or October of 2024, David, we should have a simple resolution. We have millions of resolutions. Most of them are simple. That for 2025, this group is so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. I don't think our chair from Silver Creek would be pleased if he found out that the advisory group was from Celeron, Lakewood, Fluvanna, and Bemis Point, that it was nobody along the Lake Erie shore. I don't think you'd like to know that that's what you're being asked to rely on. So it's maybe we could we pass a motion as a committee, a motion, that we request that for, prior to January 1 of 2025, we have a resolution naming the people in these two advisory groups by name and address, like we do with every other board and commission that we have. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of the motion Fred presented?
Aye.
Aye.
And I agree with that, for, not that I don't believe in or trust the work that has been completed in the past or going forward in these individuals on this committee. I look at it selfishly from the district that I represent. And, you know, sometimes I do feel Cassadaga Lake, portion is Bear Lake, so on and so forth, don't always meet the thresholds. And so for that, for mostly that reason, so thank you.
Old Russian saying, trust but verify,
Right.
which Reagan quoted back to them.
So do we have anything to add? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Carried. David, thank you. The next resolution is, I believe it's close to the same resolution, but it's for the in-lake occupancy. It's authorizing SEQRA review of 2% of the in-lake occupancy tax grant program projects for 2025.
Discussion's the same.
Discussion's the same? Okay. Would we need a separate motion for that? Or would we be able to do a separate motion?
Just go with the resolution.
Okay. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, next on the agenda is going to be the update on the Ripley site. There'll be a presentation by Nate Aldridge. I believe Mark Ice will be participating. Majority. And what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to let the committee know if it's time to, if we can hold our comments and questions until the presentation is completed.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have a piece of a few of those things from the past.
How's it right here?
Yes, yes.
But he didn't know what it is. $35 million.
Hey, gentlemen, if you can all introduce yourself or reintroduce yourselves, I'd appreciate it.
Matt Fitzgerald with Phillips Lytle.
Tim Moriarty with Phillips Lytle.
So we've got a team of people. I don't know how many people are on the WebEx, but I want to sort of talk about the team that we put together to do this. Of course, we have our county and IDA team, which is, you know, myself and Nate and Linda Burns and Emma Cook and Stephanie Nick and Rebecca Worcester. So they all play some part, and sometimes small, sometimes larger. Obviously, the town of Ripley, the town supervisor Laura Pless, and the deputy town supervisor Doug Bowen. We have monthly meetings to keep pushing this thing forward. In West Buffalo Niagara, Matt Hubacher is their director of properties. Empire State Development with Aaron Carrero, Karen Utz. Jeff Januszewski has been quite involved. He's a really high level in ESD. They have Clark Patterson Lee, Andrew Kosa. I don't know if he's on. I know his son had a baseball game. And then we've got other members of Clark Patterson Lee. Hannah Commercial Realty, Paula Blanchard, who I know is on. I heard her earlier. She's doing the property stuff. Phillips Lytle, Millen Tyler, Greg Peterson, Tim Moriarty, who is really involved in all the contracts, um, and Dennis Elsenbeck, and Matt Fitzgerald. And Matt is like, what do they call you, the Seeker King, or
That's-
something like that?
The title keeps changing depending on the day, but
The
yeah.
Seeker Champion, so he's the best in the business. And then National Grid, Jenna Kavanaugh and Paul Kazmarek, I think I said that right, Kazmarzak. So anyway, I wanted to, I didn't know how many people would be sitting here and how many people are on the Zoom call, but that's sort of our team. So that's what's pushing this forward. And so I'm gonna sort of try to do the sort of the play-by-play, and then I really want these guys to jump in and add some color commentary, and I'll turn to them and answer the hard questions, of course. So, real quick, obviously, we've been working on this, and you guys have heard us talk about shovel ready, and we've been working on this project since really before 2020. So 5-6 years we've been working on this, and we did an analysis with Clark Patterson Lee early on that looked at more than 40 sites throughout the county to identify key sites. And initially our focus was on the North County because we only have 10 acres, not all of which is usable in the Chadwick Bay Industrial Park, and we still have the 60 acres in Mason. So we thought we'd start in the North County and then change our focus to the South County. Not that we can't do both at the same time, but we had to have some kind of initial focus. So that's why we initially started in the North County. We narrowed that down, those 40 sites down to 3. And the Ripley site was one of those sites. And I don't want to say where the other 2 are because we're still working on those. And so we'll see what happens there. But so we use things like size, ownership, zoning, surrounding land use, availability of infrastructure, environmental features, topography, slope, soil type, location, distance from the I-90 or the I-86, estimated acquisition costs, site improvement costs, and several other factors to sort of evaluate them and say, give them a ranking and determine what made sense. There was also, and I'll talk about it a little more later, is Newmark Frank did a study. They're a large site selector consulting company, the largest in the country. They did a really extensive analysis of Western New York to try to determine how we were sitting in terms of shovel-ready sites and buildings. And they compared us to other comparable cities of our size, and they determined that we were lacking big time in both buildings and sites. So it really, they came out and they visited our top 3 sites. Actually, top 5, because we did, I think 2 in the South County and 3 in the North County that they looked at. And they concluded that they felt like this Ripley site was the best positioned to develop. So if you want to go to the next slide, obviously you know where it is. Ripley, right, site map. Go next one. You can see the Shortman Road exit just in the southeast corner. Regal Trucking is just, you can see the little dotted line that comes off of Shortman right below Regal Trucking. That will be the entrance, and you'll see that in future slides. And there's even the potential to continue to potentially develop to the east as well. There's still some parcels that way that we could go after. Next one. 147 acres. It would involve about 3,000 feet of roadway, 12-inch water line, sanitary sewer lines, gas and electric, acquisition of right-of-ways. It's close proximity. It's only about 1,000 feet from the I-90. the fact that it's 146 contiguous acres is significant. It's a gateway to New York State, and we really feel because of its location, size, et cetera, that it will fulfill a critical need for warehousing and distribution site inventory per Newmark's study. They said presently there's no doubt an acute lack of high-quality, available, near-ready, and marketable industrial real estate to attract new investment to the Buffalo region. We got in 2022, Love's opened across the street. They were in, I can't remember when they ran the water and sewer, but it was 4 or 5 years ago that they extended the water and sewer down Shortman Road. And then there was just recently a sale of approximately 9 acres north of the Thruway for a new travel plaza, the adult store and, you know, in that land. So there's stuff going on there, right? So progress to date, we acquired the Phase 1 parcels. We have options on the Phase 2 parcels. And number 3, environmental due diligence is completed. Maybe, well, Tim, I don't know if you want to talk about maybe since you're here and I'd like to use you, the negotiations that we had to go through real quick for the purchase of the 4 Phase 1 parcels, timing, and then, of course, the Phase 2 with the options.
Yes, the negotiations pretty much was pretty smooth. I mean, once the ball got rolling and the assessments came in and the sellers actually, their assessment came in lower than ours, and so we obviously wanted to move fast once they agreed to an amount that we thought was appropriate. And over the course of probably about 9 months, we were able to pretty much acquire the property, moving, I would call it north to south or east to west, you know, back towards Shortman Road. And the families that own those properties, I think, were looking to be involved and, you know, help the community out to a certain degree. And, you know, the contracts were very smooth and didn't really require too much back and forth. And we were happy with the progress how it went.
I think also key was they were all contingent on the others signing.
Correct, yeah.
So we couldn't get just 1 or 2 or 3. It had to be all 4.
Yeah, those contracts were built to protect the county and the IDA for sure. There was no chances that we were taking that like we were gonna get stuck with one parcel or, you know, have a gap in the middle or anything like that.
Maybe worth noting, we also have 10-year options on those Phase 2 parcels as well.
Correct.
And we're not paying for those options, so that's key too.
Good, that's key.
And then, of course, the environmental due diligence. Tim, I don't know if you want to talk about the DGEIS.
Tim doesn't, but I should.
I mean, I'm sorry, I meant Matt.
So-
I meant Matt, I'm sorry. Matt.
So everyone, again, Matt Fitzgerald with Phillips Lytle. I specialize in all things environmental compliance, permitting. Key here is the work that was done by the IDA pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, that's SEQR. So for a big project like this, SEQR has a tool, it's called a generic environmental impact statement. And what it allows an agency to do is say, we have this land, we have some idea of what we want to do with it, but we don't necessarily have a project lined up yet. So when you do a generic environmental impact statement, you look at all the things that you would look at if you had a project. You'd look at wetlands, archaeological resources, traffic, noise, lighting, all of these things, threatened and endangered species. You go through and you do the SEQR based on a conceptual project, the conceptual full build out of the entirety of the site. And that's what was done here. And what that allows you to do is a couple of different things. One is by getting SEQR done, it allows you to obtain state and other funding for the project, which I know we'll get to talk about later. But that opens the door to allow that money to come into the project, because until SEQR is done, that money can't start flowing. The other thing it does is when applicants are looking for projects, they're looking to see somewhere where when they come in and say, you know, what's the permitting process? What's the timeline? You can say, well, the biggest timeline hurdle for a large-scale project is going to be the environmental review that's going to accompany any zoning review or anything like that. It's already done here. It's already been done. You just come in and you slide the project into the site, goes through the local zoning process, the SEQR, all that environmental work has already been completed here. And that's as somebody who's worked on a couple of these kinds of projects, highly attractive for applicants and developers as they come in. So all of that is completed, all of it was completed before the properties were actually acquired. So we knew going in terms of developable acreage, any risks in terms of threatened and endangered species. The site was cleared on all those issues before acquisition took place of the phase 1 parcels.
Can you just flip to the next slide, and then we'll go back to this slide? But that's sort of the conceptual plan, right? And look, at this is definitely gonna change, right? But this is sort of like we, as Matt was talking about, full build out. What's that look like? And what would the environmental impacts, et cetera, be of a full build out? And you base your seeker on that.
Right. And one thing I'll say is the question is always, what happens if something comes in and it's really not at all like this? And the reason it's called the generic environmental impact statement is because there's meant to be tremendous flexibility. If tomorrow an opportunity came in that was something that no one had ever thought of, but it's something that's very attractive that would fit in the site, the IDA is well positioned as the lead agency for seeker to allow that to come in because of the work that was done.
All right, if you can go back. I don't know if Jenna or Paul are on the WebEx. What?
Jenny.
Paul is here. I think Jenna's here.
Hi, Mark. I'm available. How are you today?
Good, good. So maybe you could just, 2-minute electric feasibility study that we did and then what the next steps are.
Okay, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jenna Kavanaugh from National Grid. I am National Grid's economic development representative in Western New York. So we began talking specifically about this site with Chautauqua County from an electrical standpoint, really, I'd say late spring of 2023, where we discussed engaging in a design and engineering study, what we call a 4.2 study. So we determined that based on the desire to develop a light industrial distribution facility, what we really needed to bring here was 34.5, which would bring about 5 MVA to the site. That would, in general, allow you to have, a certain number of perhaps 8 150 square foot buildings that are light industrial distribution operating. So over the course of the last several months, our engineers and project managers have been scoping out this study. And recently we presented 2 options in particular to the Chautauqua team, which they are reviewing. The cost to bring 34.5 distribution to the site is roughly going to be about 2.3 to 2.7 million, depending on which option we finalize. But this is, and we really looked at, how do we bring it most affordably, reliably, efficiently, and with the least intrusive design. We also at National Grid have a shovel-ready economic development grant program, which we are looking at for that grant program, supporting this to help offset that cost to about $500,000.
And so one thing, going back a little bit, is that the site is served by electric, but not enough to do what we're trying to do. Bringing 5 megawatts down there will. Thank you.
Yes, so
Thank you, Jenna.
So the next study, we're just finalizing the options, and then we'll progress to an implementation phase as it aligns with the development of the rest of the utilities in the park. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jenna.
Thanks.
Okay, so talk about the funding. It's about a $15-16 million project, and maybe I could do it, but Nate, you want to talk a little bit about where we're at with funding secured and what we're going after?
Yeah, we have a slide later on that outlines the sources, uses we've obtained. Again, that 12 million is made up of county capital projects funding, ARPA funding. The CCIDA board has made a commitment. That big Fast New York grant we were able to attain late last year at 5.25 million. And then we're working on several grants. Jenna mentioned National Grid's Shovel Ready grant program specific for the electrical infrastructure. We'll begin to pursue that once we have a final path and plan identified. But in the meantime, we've submitted requests to both Schumer and Langworthy through their congressional community-directed spending request process, and happy to report that $650,000 made it into Senator Schumer's appropriations list through Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill. Doesn't mean it's going to make it on the final appropriations bill, but that's a great step forward. That's specific for the left-hand turn lane onto Shortman Road into the site. And then we're working on several other federal grants, including ARC Power, inflation.
I wrote it,
the acronym.
I wrote it down someplace. Infrastructure.
Investment and Jobs Act.
Yep.
We've been allocated $1 million through Southern Tier West and Appalachian Regional Commission. We still need to apply for the project, but that application's in development. Probably applying, that's $1 million. We applied for another that ARC Power grant was $2 million. And we just started an EDA grant within the last month, and that will likely be $2 to $3 million as well.
And we're working with McAllister and Quinn on that. They're working on the funding. Obviously, we know about the bond issuance that the county did with the IDA to cover the cost of the $5.25 million. It's reimbursable, so we have to spend it before we can get it back. So, and then we also have a grape harvesting agreement in place. I don't know if you just real quick.
Yeah,
just real quick.
Part of the whole contract process was that the farmers that were currently occupying the land, own the land, wanted to be able to maintain some sort of like harvest areas for their grape harvest. So post closing, they also, it was beneficial to us actually, which we could go into the environmental impacts about maintaining the property as vineyard land as opposed to just letting it grow is extremely beneficial to us. But it gave us an opportunity to actually have the old owners maintain our land, or your land,
Right.
and continue to harvest grapes in the meantime until a building is built, and it, it's a financial incentive to us and environmental.
And I would like to, in the future, remove as few of those grapes as possible. If we can maintain some grapes, in places where there's not roads or buildings, that would be our druthers.
Will the county get the money on the grapes?
What's that?
If no? Okay.
I'm negotiating, not bad, but not that good.
Well, I'm sure by the attorney's fees to put that they're gonna, once the road is built, we convey it over to the town. I don't know how that works exactly legally, but then the town will maintain it. And they'll do that through a host agreement with any of the developers that come along. There will likely be a pilot, maybe a standard pilot with a host agreement, and then a host agreement goes towards the maintenance of that road and infrastructure. Again, the concept plan, next slide. You know what that looks like. Talked about that. And the zoning. So what was that, 3-4 years ago, I want to say, we worked with the town to rezone those parcels. And you can see it's C2, commercial 2. And this chart shows what type of activities are allowed by right or through special use permit. So you can see it's wholesale business, warehousing, storage of materials, fuel warehouse by right. Then you can see by special use permit, electronics and small parts, lab and research, gas oil well, and then again by right, manufacturing general, manufacturing of food products, and then down at the bottom, industrial park and business park. So I think we're good. And they're also, Doug Bowen asked me to say that they're also working on a comprehensive plan, and this is going to be baked into that plan as well. So I don't know if Laura or Doug are on, or plus, no? Okay. All right, that's okay. Next slide. We already talked about the status of land acquisition. Next slide. Okay. So you can see You know, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but you can see it was Regal Trucking, Regal Warehousing Properties, the McDonald's, the Concord Farms, the Knight family for those Phase 1 parcels. You can see the size of the parcels, and then Cochran Farms for all the Phase 2 parcels. Okay, next slide. Land valuation. Paula, are you still on?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Can you turn that up a little or no? No?
I don't know that I can speak any louder. I think I'm cranked up as far
Hold
as I
on.
can go.
Hold on.
Okay,
Okay?
Yep, she's good.
okay. How's that? Testing, testing?
Good, yeah, you want to talk through a little bit, Paula, about how the cost of the land came to be, or the value of the land came to be, and, you know, maybe talk about how it relates to maybe some other land in the
Yes,
in the
Mark,
county?
I'd be happy to. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paula Blanchard. I'm with Hannah Commercial Real Estate, and I've been working with the CCIDA for the past few years. My primary job has been to assist with the acquisition of the Ripley parcels. And one of the first things that the CCIDA did in this effort was to engage the services of KLW Appraisal Group. KLW is highly recommended for their high standards, experience, and their thoroughness and impartiality. They have a stellar reputation in the commercial real estate community, not only here in Western New York, but also nationally as well. And they have a pretty impressive client list of not just public and private sectors, but local, county, state, and federal agencies, commercial lenders, law firms, et cetera. So they came very highly recommended, and they engaged in an extensive appraisal process that included valuation analysis of 20 different comparable sales. One of those comparables was the Love's Travel Plaza across the street, as Mark had mentioned earlier, which sold in 2020 for almost $63,000 an acre. So that gives you, a little bit of a sense of the kind of value that Shortman Road is seeing. And in addition to the comparable sales, it's worth noting that the purchase price that CCIDA paid for all the parcels was either at or below the appraised values. The total acquisition cost of Phase 1 was it was just over $2 million, I believe. So valuations per acre were anywhere from $30,000 to $55,000 per acre. There were, $26,000 per acre for the Phase 2 parcels. So KLW completed all of their appraisal reports in February 2022, and that was the CCIDA's guiding light in putting the purchase contracts together for all 4 of the parcels.
Yeah, and Paul, I'm just gonna jump on here and add something. So the average cost per acre, I figured it out, was about $32,670, about $33,000. And the number of usable acres, when you remove the wetlands and the road and et cetera, is about 130 usable acres out of that 146. Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
Next slide, please. So Nate talked about this a little bit, but you can see where our sources, the sources of our funding. ARPA was about 4.8, county capital projects about 1.1. The IDA is contributing $1 million. We got that Fast New York grant for $5.25 million. We got a grant for the electric study. So right now we've got about $12.2 million. And if you look at the uses, the land cost, the environmental due diligence, infrastructure extension, that's a big one. That's almost 10 million. And all those other costs, closing costs, finance costs, et cetera, it's about 15.5. So right now we're at about we have a gap of about 3.3 million. And again, we're chasing after, if we score on even half of those grants that we're chasing after, we'll be okay. We also have flexibility that we could tailor back the length of the road and the infrastructure if we had to, not extend it quite as far. So there are some things that we can do if we don't quite get there, but I'm confident we will. And the next one is those, and Nate talked about them, the sources of funding. You can see it's 6.1 if we were to score on all of them, and we need 3.2 or whatever it was. So, so we're gonna keep working at that. I had talked, next slide, please. I had talked a little bit, next slide. You know, on the demand side, this big study that Newmark did with Invest Buffalo Niagara. And it was really a rallying cry, because after that, Invest Buffalo Niagara formed a whole committee, and I'm on that committee of really developing shovel-ready sites. And there was a lot of recommendations that came out of that study, and I would say 75% of the recommendations they've implemented. Maybe it's the lower hanging fruit, but you know, it really was, for us, it was like confirmed, because before it was just like, we need shovel-ready sites, nothing really sort of backing that up, and this was what we really needed to say, yeah, I mean, there's been a study done, and it supports what we're saying here. We need sites. Yeah, and the other thing is that there's been you know, there's a real need for like modern usable space. You know, the old buildings are great, right? But a lot of the older buildings that, I mean, if they need too much work, it's, you know, it's not cost effective, and they're not laid out the right way, and so really building new buildings really appeals to a lot of developers. And there's been an increase, a notable increase in the need for warehousing and distribution facilities, locally and at the regional level. You know, we got some big things going on at Cummins Engine. You know, there's a lot of things even locally here that even locally we need it, but certainly regionally. We, you know, at the IDA, we regularly receive a lot of inquiries for warehousing and distribution facilities, existing buildings or land, and we just don't have these large parcels. All we have is that, you know, obviously the 33 acres down in Mason, but you know, some of these projects are 100 acres or 150 acres. So we're confident that that we're on the right track.
One
Next.
thing, our partner at Invest Buffalo Niagara, who couldn't be here tonight, but Tom Chaharsky, Matt Hubacher have been great partners through all of this. Matt wanted us to mention in the 5-county Western New York region, the availability rate for warehousing space built from 1990 to now is less than 0.5%. So not only is industrial warehousing low in general, that, as Mark said, that new space is just non-existent.
Yep. Thank you for remembering that. And then, you know, there's also, you know, there's this big push for growing the microchip industry, and certainly the supply chain. I mean, we feel like this site is perfectly situated between the investments being made in Columbus, Ohio, through Intel, and Syracuse at the Micron, $1 billion Schumer has been pushing for and got it, and so we're right in the center there. So we think we're going to be able to really sort of fit into that really well. Marketing the site, and I'm almost at the end here. Marketing the site. So, and maybe Paul, you can jump in at some point, but you know, certainly Invest Buffalo Niagara, they've been a great partner, and they do the, you know, Buffalo Niagara commercial listing system. They do media outreach. You know, they're constantly sending us leads for space, and that's because they're out there marketing it like crazy. Certainly, we will continue to work with Paula Blanchard and Hannah on marketing the site to regional and national developers and site selectors. And then, you know, we'll do advertising on site. You know, a lot of people drive down the thruway there, and it will truly be shovel ready. you know, this time. Implementing, or, and then we'll launch a comprehensive publicity campaign. And, you know, we'll certainly be looking at Canada as well as this region and several states. So we feel very confident that once we get it to the right point, and we're not gonna wait until it's, you know, it's done. We're gonna kick this into gear when we know it's gonna be done so that the timing is right. And then, did you want to add anything on that? No?
Yes, Mark, just to put
Yeah.
an exclamation point on it, this will truly be a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach. So we'll be coming at the marketing from a number of different directions. Invest Buffalo Niagara, Hannah's work, all of the extensive commercial real estate platforms that we use in marketing our listings, the outdoor advertising and so forth. So, and with the publicity, it's going to be quite visible.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome, Mark.
And then, next slide, please. Potential job creation, you know, Mr. Larson was talking earlier about the Mason site and sort of you do calculations based on, well, what's its use and how big would the building be and make your best guess. But, you know, we sort of broke out that this is sort of what we're thinking in terms of, and it might be something totally different, but this is sort of what we're aiming for, 35% light industrial, 60% warehousing, and 5% general office buildings, and sort of broke down the square footage based on 500,000 square feet on that phase one, and came up with a total employee count of somewhere around 320 employees for phase one. Phase two, again, similar breakdown, 320 employees. So, you know, we think on the low side, 640 employees, maybe on the high side, 840. So that's sort of our best guess at trying to determine what the jobs would be. And then next steps. So, you know, we're working on that additional funding, and we hope that, you know, by the end of this year, we will know if we've met our target. I'm confident we will. And we're working on an RFP right now for the engineering and construction management services. Obviously, somebody's got to lay this whole thing out and do the detailed engineering. So we're working with the county engineer to develop that RFP. We hope to have that out probably in the fall of this year. You know, obviously administering the grant funding, which is a large lift. I mean, it really is complicated, but, you know, we're going to be doing that. We're already doing that with that Fast New York grant, but that's ongoing. We will complete and issue the RFP for infrastructure extensions and award the bids in late 2024, early 2025. So we sort of have to get that, we have to get the construction, the engineering done first, and then we use that, and then that sets the table for us to do an RFP for the actual construction. And we can't really do that until we have the money, so. And then, of course, developing the marketing strategy, probably spring of 2025 is when we'll start that, get that into gear. And then we hope to have the project complete by maybe mid to late 2026.
Thank you all for the presentation. I did real estate law for 38 years, including commercial real estate. I'm still struck by what was out there in 64 acres in Ripley that was worth $2 million or $32,000 an acre. Kind of water over the dam on phase one, you own it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many usable acres out of that 64 or 65? You can't claim all of it.
We have that number.
I think it's 56 acres.
56 out of that 64?
All right.
That's correct.
64.
Yep.
So on the jobs issue, which quickly went through that one slide,
Yep.
56 usable acres. In all likelihood, the discussion about this property, because for one thing, the town of Ripley didn't go all the way to zone it industrial. The honest answer would appear to be off the thruway, this is mostly warehouse distribution potential. I'm confused. The CCIDA expert just a few weeks ago said that the 30-some usable acres in the South County Industrial Park, if used for manufacturing, would be about 50 job target. If used for warehouse distribution, about 25 jobs. Well, 56, even if we call it twice the acreage in the South County, usable, all of a sudden, 50 jobs industrial in the South County become a mix of industrial and warehouse distribution of 320 jobs. That's a heck of a difference of opinion as to how many jobs are likely to be created from 56 usable acres. Does anybody have an explanation why the South County, our same expert, I don't know who came up with those figures. Maybe he didn't have anything to do with that slide.
Yeah, he, so our consultant, I'm relying on our consultant with this mix, with that location, with these, with this configuration, et cetera, that this would be the estimate of job counts. I can't argue with him. He's certainly got more expertise in that area than I do. But we'll see, Fred, it's
maybe you
also,
can't argue with him, but as an elected official, I can.
These are all speculative. I mean, we don't know if it could be twice that, it could be half that. I mean, this is our best guess. It's our best guess as we sit here today. So,
It's certainly a question worth asking is why does one side have twice the employment per acre as the other? And he may have a good reason right off the top of his head.
And I don't know the answer to that. I didn't notice
But
that.
it begs to be answered.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly find out and get back to you with that.
But on the face of it, it's wildly different expert opinion on potential job creation. 33 acres in an established industrial park, 56 acres in a future industrial park. I don't like overselling and underperforming. I like underpromising and hopefully overperforming. I mean, so I've made my point on that. The phase one, you already own the land, and it's going to be about 56 usable acres. You got $5 million from the state of New York altogether, as I understand. You being the IDA, is it direct grant to the IDA, our county
Yes.
IDA? Yeah. And this legislature last year, I wasn't on it, gave the county IDA $4.8 million of Joe Biden's money to the county with no strings attached that I can see. So those two alone are about 10 million bucks. If you stopped at phase one, how much money is going to go into those 56 usable acres? Your
Well-
acquisition cost was already over 2 million, right? About 2 million.
Well, I don't expect, first of all, to stop at phase one, but, because we already have more than the 10 million that would be required to get phase one done.
Well, how much does it cost? That's what I'm asking. How much is phase one discretely costing?
It'd be the entire project cost minus the phase two acquisition at 2.2 million, so approximately 13.2 million.
In the 56 usable acres?
Right.
So if it turned out to be 100 jobs created, it'd be about 136,000 of public money per job in phase one.
Why 100?
Why not?
Oh.
If only 50 in manufacturing in the South County 33 acres, 56 usable acres, if it was all manufacturing, would be about 100 jobs with $13 million. That's 130,000 public money per job. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, but these 19 legislators deserve to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to the best of people's knowledge. And the public deserves to know that this is not going to be this isn't going to be Cummins Engine revisited with 1,200 employees out there. Ripley isn't going to allow a Cummins engine under that zoning. It's going to be light manufacturing, assembly of stuff maybe. But can you confirm that the obvious use of this property is warehouse distribution?
We don't know. The limiting factor is the amount of electric we have. So we don't really know whether it's gonna be, that was our best guess. I mean, we've been transparent about this project since the very beginning. We've talked about, we haven't changed our story one bit. We're doing the best we can to create a shovel-ready site, and we're trying to do it with as little county money and public money as possible. We're chasing after all the grants we can get. We've got the confirmation. We feel strongly that it's the right site. I don't know what else to really say other than this is our, we're doing the best we can to provide what we believe are, from what we know as we sit here today, our best guess.
On the point of the least county money,
Yeah,
the Joe Biden money was county money.
yeah.
The legislature last year could have spent that $4.8 million on rebuilding miles and miles and miles of county road. They could have done anything with it.
Mhm.
They decided to hand that to the IDA. That's county money. And then there's a reference to, there's some capital project money, some other point went in, so it must be over $5 million of county tax dollars, county dollars in the project already, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phase 2, how many usable acres in phase 2? There was an earlier press report within the last year that you all acknowledged there was at least 26 acres of wetlands.
There's 129 usable acres, all
In both phases.
in both phases.
73.4 in phase two.
73 in phase 2.
And I can clarify some of the confusion about the wetlands, because at one point, certain parcels to the east of the currently, optioned parcels were considered. Those parcels were much more heavily wetland, and so there was a shift in the focus of the parcels to focus on parcels further to the west to open up more developable acreage.
All right.
So I don't know for sure that that's what was in reference to, but it may have been.
Could be, sure. So 56 usable in phase 1, 73 in phase 2. So you're looking at 129 usable acres after you spend all the money to acquire phase 2.
Mhm.
All right. As someone that's been involved with this since 1986, economic development, industrial parks, I respectfully request that somebody go back and look at those projected job figures. It doesn't jive with what I've already learned through your own expert regarding the South County Industrial Park. I'd appreciate that. And again, maybe Fred Johnson would agree with me, in business, under-promise and over-perform and your customers are gonna be happy.
Do what you say you're gonna do when you said you're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's true. And it's easier if you under-promise. So, all right, that gives us a better idea of where we're at. I'm not impressed by Ripley's role in this. Not only will they share in any pilot, right? Right? Town's gonna share in any pilot. So big deal, they're gonna take title to the road once it's built, but the various businesses that come in are gonna pay a host fee to Ripley to pay them back for taking care of the road. So their payment in lieu of tax payment will be for no services to speak of whatsoever. I don't think there's a Ripley police force, so somebody at the warehouse is going to get sheriff or state police to respond, or, so at
But we
least,
don't- we
at
don't
least
know
in the,
what-
I think in the South County Industrial Park, at least after we got done building a road for CERTA and stuff, I believe the town of Ellicott took title to the road and didn't get a separate host payment to take care of the road. They're getting tax money off the new development. Anyway, small item, but interesting. Thank you, gentlemen, thank everybody. Oh, I should say one thing. I know that there's a feeling in different places that I'm a pain in the neck and other parts of the body. But this legislature, if anybody bothers to read the charter carefully, and our own county code, and our own legislature rules, we're supposed to oversight county government and what happens to our money. And it's not being a pain in the neck to keep track of what's happening to our money and where it's going, what the priorities are. And as the only lawyer on the legislature, as a lawyer, I've had training in how to ask questions that other people might not know how to do. And I didn't get hired by Phillips Lytle, but I did get hired by Jacob Fleischman and Mughal. So, and clerked at Hodgson Russ, no offense.
None taken.
So that's my job here, gentlemen. It's not to be a pain in your neck. It's to try to have the other 18 legislators plus myself understand what the heck's going on and let the public have some idea. And so I think tonight's presentation and your answers to questions have clarified things for me and hopefully for other legislators and the public eventually. Thank you.
Great presentation.
And thank you to Paula, Jenna, and Andrew for joining us as well.
You're welcome.
Hey, this is Andrew Cosa. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, I just want to chime in. Sorry, it took me a little bit to verify on my phone, but so the inconsistency in the job numbers is based on density. So at Mason, I had 150,000 square foot concept building. Divide by the 3,000 jobs. That's how I came up with the 50. Pretty confident we can get about 300,000 square foot on that 33 acres. And then that would match what we put together for Ripley. So sorry about that. I apologize.
Does that make sense?
There's the answer.
Smaller building.
No, doubling the size of the facility in South County Park, I don't know how that would raise the projection of 50 manufacturing jobs to 300, close to
I had a
3.
concept plan, and I had 150,000 square foot on Mason Industrial. So my square footage projection on that site's a little bit lower than it probably should be.
Okay.
But we at a higher density. So the Ripley, we have a higher density. We have 500,000 square foot versus the 150,000 square foot. So that's the difference in the jobs.
Right. Yeah, so if you looked at it on a square foot basis, they would match up of the buildings.
Yeah. Well, I get the argument,
Yeah.
but I'm still visualizing where big warehouse distribution buildings. Yeah, I assume our expert sticks with his opinion that warehouse distribution, a 300,000 square foot warehouse distribution building will have roughly half the employees of a 300,000 square foot manufacturing facility. Is that right?
Yeah, roughly. I mean, it depends on the overall use. I mean, warehouse industry standards are still 1 job per 1,500 to 3,000 square foot, and industrial or manufacturing is still 1 per 1,500. So they could essentially be the same based on industry standards. It just depends on the ultimate use of the building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, Nate, Tim, Matt, thank you so much for presentation.
Thank you.
Do we have
Thank you.
anything else as-
No.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Really?
Have we already?
I don't think there's anybody to speak to us at the end.
All those in favors of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Always in order,
Blue
though.
spots in that site are lakes,
Oh, the retention pond.
right, because you.
I spent a lot of time plowing that
runoff
Regal
of
truck
debt through the
site.
throughway probably.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're
I'm surprised
surged.
they didn't.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's a hell of a business there.
Well, forever, what was there other than the